wondered at all what the bleep is Web 3.0 and everyone is talking about it, but how do you actually prepare yourself and your business for what looks like the future of the internet, which is coming faster than anyone ever imagined? And because I know this is real and you're like, I'm just getting used to Web 2.0 and now it's Web 3.0 and what do I need to know exactly? I brought my friend Ryan Levesque, who is one of the world's experts, not just in understanding Web 3, but really understanding how do you create a participatory environment with your audience? How do you really speak directly to them? How do you segment your audience into the different kind of buckets so you can be talking to them as individuals in a way that's relevant to every single person who enters your world, rather than doing the one size fits all kind of marketing that was common in Web 1.0 and even in Web 2.0. So if you've been worried about or thinking about the future of the internet, you are in the right place. So Ryan, and by the way, Ryan is the founder of the Ask company, the Ask Method company, and I've known him for about a decade. And I always said that Ryan and I are like the male and female versions of each other. So we started around the same time. We both went to Brown University. He's kind of like, super geeky and smart, and kind of some of the things that I would say about myself, I would also say about Ryan, except he's smarter than me and he's more successful than me. And he's a multi-year Inc. 5000 winning CEO and has a $10 million plus a year business. So Ryan, what exactly is Web 3.0? And what does everyone need to know about kind of preparing for the future, which seems to be here right now?
Yeah, well, so first of all, super appreciate that warm introduction. I don't think it's deserved at all, but very excited. I look up to you in much the same way. So very awesome to have this conversation and very excited to be here. So, to kind of kick things off, first and foremost, I want to talk about Web3, and I really want to talk about what Web3 means specifically if you are a digital marketer, you're a course creator, you're looking to kind of take advantage of this, because I think a lot of the press has focused around things like, blockchain technology and the Facebook Metaverse. And people think Web 3.0 is like, oh, we're just going to all walk around with virtual reality glasses and it's going to be like this new sort of, weird world that people are kind of dismissing. And that's not it at all. There are other changes that are happening in a big and major way that affect all of us, that are disrupting the way that we advertise and market and sell our products and services online. Before we can get into that, though, I think it's important to kind of understand how we got to where we are here today. So to understand what Web 3 is, we have to understand what Web 1.0 and what Web 2.0 actually mean, and then how that's led us to Web 3.0. So when you think about the first sort of, era of the internet, Web 1.0 was where the first time ever we saw the democratization of information, where it was the first time in history where you didn't have to go to a library or the encyclopedia to look up information. You could go online and anybody could create any website on anything. So you had this massive proliferation of independently controlled, independently owned websites on all sorts of different topics and ideas and things just around the world. Anybody with an internet connection could start a website. And then what started to happen is people realized, well, oh man, this is like kind of hard to create my own website. Like that's a lot of work. So you had these major big tech platforms like Twitter and WordPress and Facebook and YouTube, where they said, basically, you don't have to host all this stuff. You don't have to maintain your own servers. Let's consolidate all this in one place. So we went from this massive decentralization to this massive centralization in Web 2.0, where we had big tech kind of dominating the internet. And that's kind of where we've been in the last sort of 5 to 10 years. You've got a few big tech platforms that dominate the internet. You've got Google, you've got Facebook, you've got their sub properties. And what's happened is, like most things in life, you've got culture and counterculture, cyclical, counter-cyclical movements. And so we are coming full circle once again, where there's a movement away from big tech, a backlash towards user privacy, a backlash around owning your own data. And now, once again, we're moving into this world where we're seeing decentralization happen again, where people are voting and raising their hands and saying, you know what, I don't want my information, my data to be shared with big data. I want to take back control of this. And things all kind of really came to a head in 2021 when Apple made the decision in its iOS 14 operating system to no longer provide that user data to the Facebooks, to the Googles of the world, and decided to keep that private. And most people don't realize how much of a monumental move that is and was, and what it means for us as advertisers and what we should be doing about it, how to prepare, and what moves we all need to be making right now if we have any chance of hoping to be successful in this new Web 3.0 era of the internet. So that kind of is like a bit of a backdrop, Marisa, and kind of like where we've been, where we're at right now. And I think it makes sense for us to dive deeper into that. I know we've got, more conversation coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Super, super helpful context as to how we got here and what is it that we're actually talking about. Now, I think the question is, how does this impact online businesses and what can we do to prepare?
So in the Web 2.0 era, this massive consolidation of data and information around a handful of big tech platforms, we as digital advertisers, as marketers online, have been able to rely on what's known as third-party data. Third-party data, as the name implies, is information gathered by a third party that we've been able to leverage as advertisers in order to attract the right types of customers, clients, and students into our business. So for example, over the last 5 to 10 years, we've been able to go to Facebook, for example, and say, hey, Facebook, can you find me people who match this interest profile, that are interested in this and like this and do this other thing? And Facebook, with an incredible degree of accuracy, has been able to provide us with those people, serve those people up to us on a silver platter. How have they been able to do that? Because they've been fed by the Apples of the world who up until this point have allowed Facebook to mine all that user browser data. So when you're scrolling on your iPhone and you're checking stuff out on the internet, Facebook's been able to capture that information, say, oh, I think this person here who went to this camping website and who bought a tent and who's booking a trip to the Grand Canyon probably needs a flight to Arizona to actually do this trip. So let's serve them ads on how to fly to visit the Grand Canyon, right? Well, in 2021, when Apple released its iOS 14 operating system, it quite literally cut the umbilical cord, no longer providing any of that information. And it quite literally cut Facebook off at the knees, because now Facebook can only target users based on the in-channel on-platform behavior, i.e. the way in which we interact on Facebook, not how we spend our time on other apps, browsing the internet, the videos that we watch, all of that, that's gone. So Facebook's effectiveness literally just overnight went away. And so what it's meant is that those of us who have relied on third-party data can no longer rely on that because it's no longer being served. So the question is, what's the new paradigm? Where do you go from here? Well, it's a shift from relying on rented information, rented land, third-party data, to moving to what's known as zero-party data. Now, zero-party data is, instead of relying on third-party data sources, you are relying on information that your website visitor explicitly and voluntarily shares with you when they visit your website. Not stuff that you're tracking in the background, not stuff that Facebook is spying on us by leaving your camera on and your microphone on and listening to your dinner conversation. None of that. Stuff that your user, your website visitor, explicitly provides to you when they go to your website. In other words, when someone lands on your website and you ask them a series of questions, and that website visitor tells you the answer. When you say, what backpack are you looking for? And they say, well, I'm looking for a backpack for my son. He's in high school. He's going on a camping trip. Our budget is under $100 and his favorite color is red. What do you recommend? That is zero-party data. Data that the website visitor has explicitly provided to you in the hopes that you can not only help better sell to that individual, but better serve that individual. That is the great paradigm shift. That is the move. And for anybody who is not using that right now, you are in for a world of hurt is kind of the first phrase that came into my mind, because that old Web 2.0 paradigm of relying on third-party data is behind us. It is no longer a thing, and we're never going back. And so if you don't have a zero-party data strategy for your business, then you are not set up to succeed in this new Web 3.0 era.
Wow, awesome. That's so clarifying. And I wanted to ask, it sounds like from what you said, this change was primarily driven by technology changes by Apple, but I also believe it's happening in parallel with some changes in kind of what customer expectations and market demand. So can you see how those two things are linked?
Absolutely. You know, so we like to think of maybe Apple as being this massively altruistic organization, but the reality is it's a response to social pressure. And Apple has used privacy as their differentiator in response to its user base demanding that. So I think things came to a head when we started seeing data leaks happening and realizing, and many of us don't actually realize how much data the big data platforms have on us, how much they truly know about us and our user behavior. And in fact, I think if you were to actually dive a little bit deeper and realize how much Facebook knows about you, Google knows about you, how much these big tech platforms actually know about you, it's kind of scary in what it is that they can actually ascertain. So there's been this social backlash, this move to privacy, and you've seen it happen at a macro level with movements like GDPR coming around and versions of GDPR happening in almost half of the states in the United States that are either in action and in force right now or are about to be in force in the coming months and coming years. So GDPR is not this European problem. It is a global situation right now, this movement to users having control of their own data from California to Kazakhstan and everywhere in between. That is the way the world is moving. So it is a social force at play and this desire to take back control. Again, culture, counterculture, cyclicality, a movement from centralization, where you've got these big tech platforms, to now decentralization, where people want to take sovereignty and have sovereignty over their own information, their own data, which is arguably the single most valuable asset that all of us have, is our privacy, our information, and all that comes with it. So there's a social sort of set of circumstances, to your point, that have changed, and big tech has responded in some interesting ways. Now, the question is, what are we going to do about it, right? As digital marketers, as advertisers, what do we do about it? What's our playbook? How do we shift? What do we do differently? And I can talk about some of the practical moves and really how you should be thinking about your digital marketing strategy in this new paradigm.
Absolutely. Let's talk about what kinds of marketing really work in this particular context, the Web3 context, and also the social, forces that are behind that. Because what I've seen too in some of the research that's being done is that distrust, like people are a lot less trustful than they used to be of not just the big, data giants like Facebook, but really almost anyone doing business right now, that we have to work harder to gain people's trust and to get their information.
Well, I think it was in a group that you and I are both part of. I think you actually posted it, that now distrust is the default state that the majority of people currently exist in. So in
Yes.
other words, there's been this massive movement of distrust in the institutions that we have come to really rely on to just exist in the world that we live in here today. So when I talk about that, I'm talking at multiple levels. So sovereign distrust, state distrust, distrust of government, right? COVID brought this massive feeling of distrust. Like, are we being well taken care of as individuals? Does our government have our best interests in mind? So you have government distrust. You have financial distrust, which of course the counterculture there is the movement toward cryptocurrency, decentralization, elimination of the banking system, but it extends far beyond that. It's not just about blockchain and cryptocurrency. Now we have distrust with big tech and people feeling moving off platform, right? Moving off. And a few years ago, we saw that delete Uber hashtag that happened on Twitter, where people starting to delete Uber in part because of Uber's treatment of their drivers, but also because of their abuse of user data. We saw the same things happening earlier this year with Facebook. Facebook had the single largest stock price drop in the history of US capitalism, in the history of the stock market. And it was in response to users fleeing from the platform. Users are, for the first time ever, moving off platform. So question is, what do you need to do about it? How do you earn trust? How do you develop trust? And what we found is that it starts with conversation. It's shifting the paradigm through which you're marketing from a transactional to a conversational paradigm. You're moving from one-way communication to conversation, two-way communication at all steps of your funnel. Now, when you think about the top of your funnel, instead of trying to drive people to download something that you've created or sign up for your ebook, you begin with a conversation. You begin by asking a series of questions. Instead of trying to say, this is the right backpack for you, or click this link to get the right backpack, it's, we don't know what backpack is right for you, but I'm going to be totally transparent here. If you tell us a little bit about your situation what you're looking for, your budget, your tastes, your desires, what you're going to be using your backpack for, we can recommend the right backpack for you. Now, what's powerful about that is when you have a system, a technology, and a paradigm to be able to gather that information, and you're using the right tech stack, you can then provide the data that you get, that you own, your zero-party data, and you can connect that back to the big tech platforms. You can connect that umbilical cord to Facebook, to Google, and say, see these people who went on my website and they answered these questions in this way? I would love to find more of those people. Can you help me? Now, Apple may have cut off the umbilical cord, but you can connect it back. And that is the great unlock. That is the great secret right there, is that you use your zero-party data to inform the big platforms where people are still spending their time. Let's not lose sight of the fact that Facebook is still the most trafficked social media platform in the world. Even though they've seen a net decline in users, you still have literally over 1 billion people who go to that website every single day. You do not have 1 billion people going to your website every single day. So it is still the powerhouse, but we have to treat it differently. We have to use our own data to inform the big tech platforms who our stuff should be served to, our social posts, our ads, all the content that we put out there. So I know we're just like scratching the surface. I know we've got like limited time to cover this, but we are true. The message that I want to convey is we are entering into a new era, and the playbook that's worked in the last 10 years is obsolete. It no longer works. We're moving from horse and buggy to gasoline engine. We're moving. It is a transformational shift in the way that the world works online. And the winners of tomorrow will be decided by the moves that are made right here, right now, today.
Absolutely. So it sounds like regardless of, the size of your business, whether you're just getting going or you have a 7 or 8 or 9-figure business, this is something you need to pay attention to. Because I feel like sometimes when people hear things like Web3, they think it's only for the large businesses and not for the everyday businesses.
Absolutely. It's for every business, small business, solo operators, coaches, consultants. You might have, you might be in the early stages of your business trying to get things off the ground. You might have a large, established, successful 6, 7, 8-figure business, and everyone in between. And so, it's a matter of getting ready for Web3 right now. This is what's going to determine your success this year, next year, and the years beyond, are the moves and steps you take and what you put in place right here, right now, today.
Absolutely. And what do you think is going to happen to all of these big social platforms in the evolution of these trends? And should people still be, trying to build huge followings on these platforms, or should they start trying to build community elsewhere?
The horse and buggy did not go obsolete overnight. It doesn't happen. Changes like this don't happen overnight, but they happen faster than you might expect. The movement from Uber taking over taxis, just think how long ago was it? It was not that long ago. The smartphone transition, the revolution to going from regular cell phones to smartphones happens pretty quick. So it will be faster than you might expect, but it is something that you can still, the good news is there's still time to take action here today. So when it comes to thinking about these platforms, you want to think about how you're leveraging them. It's not to say that you're going to boycott Facebook, boycott YouTube, boycott Google, and never tap into those powers. The secret is taking people on those platforms onto your own and owning that platform, leveraging the traffic that's already there and moving people to ground and land that you truly own. Owning your own data. Data is the great unlock. It's the reason why these companies are worth not billions, but trillions of dollars, is because of the massive amount of data they have access to. Now, if you're a small solo business owner, the way that you compete is you have your own zero-party data strategy. You have your own way when someone lands on your website where you ask a series of questions. Know more about someone than just their name and email. 123@yahoo.com doesn't tell you a whole lot about a person, but if you can ask a few questions to know who they are, what their challenges are, what their priorities are, with that information, you can not only better sell, but better serve and recommend the right product and the right message for the right person at the right time using that strategy.
Absolutely. So in our last couple of minutes, I'd love you to end with just a couple takeaways in next steps for people to start preparing right away.
Yeah. So look, I know our time's limited, and I know, for people listening to this or watching this right now, it's like, man, I want to see, like, what does this actually look like? What am I actually doing? Well, the good news is we just so happen to be hosting a week-long, 100% free symposium on how to get ready for Web 3.0. And for everyone here, I'd love to invite you to join us. We're going to be talking about Web3 traffic, how you should shift your traffic strategy. We're going to be talking about Web3 products, what you should be doing with your products in preparation for this. We're going to be talking about Web3 data and privacy and how your data strategy should be changing. We're going to be talking about email and follow-up and text messaging and all of these things, because the strategies that have worked for the past with email will no longer work. You have to make moves now to prepare yourself. And last but not least, at the center of it all is what funnel you're going to be using, how you're going to be converting website traffic into customers, clients, and students. That funnel needs to shift. So it's totally free. It's happening live. If you're listening or watching this right now, like, your timing is perfect. And the link to join us is getweb3ready.com/MM for Marisa Murgatroyd. So it's getweb3ready, the number 3, getweb3ready.com/MM. That will take you to a special page where you can join us for free. You just need to register. And again, it's happening live. We've got guest experts who are going to be coming in on all these different topic areas. You're going to walk away with a Web3 playbook at the end of this week that you'll be able to implement step by step. And for everyone watching and listening to this right now, I'd love to invite you to be our special guest and join us at the symposium.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I really appreciate you. It's amazing watching just your leadership here in the market and how spot on you are with so many of the trends. And I definitely recommend that everyone go out there to the, tell me the link one more time.
Getweb3ready.com. So getweb3ready.com/MM, and go to that link, because we will be charging for this. That will take you to a way to get access to this for free. So getweb3ready.com/MM is the link, and love to have everyone here.
Awesome. I can't wait. And thank you so much for coming out. Go out there, live your message. Bye, y'all.